Yavam na jayate paraveshmin.
Yavam na jayate paraveshmin.
Yavam na jayate parevareshmin.
Yavam na jayate paraveshmin.
Vishvashvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Vishvashvare drastare bhakti yogaha.
Vishvashvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Vishvashvare bhakti yogaha.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Kriya vasane prayata smara reta.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita.
Kriya vasane prayata smareta.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita.
Yavam na jayate paravareshmin.
Yavam na jayate paravadesmin.
Vishvasvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Vishvashvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Kriya vasane prayata smareta.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita.
Yavam na jayate paravareshmin.
Yavam na jayate paravadesmin.
Vishvashvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Vishveshvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Kriya vasane prayata smareta.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita.
Yavam na jayate paravareshmin.
Yavam na jayate paravadesmin.
Vishveshvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Vishveshvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Kriya vasane prayata smareta.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita. Yavam na jayate paravadesmin.
Yavam na jayate paravadesmin.
Vishvashvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Vishvashvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita.
Kriya vasane prayate smarita.
Yavam na jayata paravadesasmin.
Yavam na jayate paravadesmin.
Vishveshvare drastari bhakti yoga.
Vishvashvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Tavastaviya purushasya rupam.
Tavastaviya purushasya rupam.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita. Anyone else?
Yavam na jayata paravadesmin.
Yavam na jayate paravadesmin.
Vishveshvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Vishveshvare drastari bhakti yogaha.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Tavat staviya purushasya rupam.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita.
Kriya vasane prayata smarita. Yavat,
Yavat,
as long as.
as long as.
Na,
Na,
does not Jayika develop Para transcendental Avade mundane Asmin in the form of Vishva Ishvara, the Lord of all worlds, Dastari, unto the seer, Bhakti Yogaha, devotional service, Avat, as so long, Staviyaha, the gross materialist, Purushasya, of the Virata Purush, Rupam, universal form, Kriya Vasane, at the end of one's prescribed duties, Priyataha, with proper attention, Smarita, one should remember. Unless the gross materialist develops a sense of loving service unto the Supreme Lord, the seer of both the transcendental and material worlds, he should remember or meditate upon the universal form of the Lord at the end of his prescribed duties. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Lord is the seer of all worlds, both material and transcendental. In other words, the Supreme Lord is the ultimate beneficiary and enjoyer of all worlds, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, text number 29. The spiritual world is the manifestation of his internal potency, and the material world is the manifestation of his external potency. The living entities are also his marginal potency, and by their own choice they can live in either the transcendental or material worlds. The material world is not a fit place for living entities because they are spiritually one with the Lord. And in the material world, the living entities become conditioned by the laws of material nature. The Lord wants all living entities who are his parts and parcels to live with him in the transcendental world, and for enlightening conditioned souls in the material world. All the Vedas and the revealed scriptures are there expressly to recall the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. Unfortunately, the conditioned living entities, although suffering continually the threefold miseries of conditioned life, are not very serious about going back to Godhead. It is due to their misguided way of living, complicated by sins and virtues. Some of them, who are virtuous by deeds, begin to reestablish the lost relation with the Lord. But they are unable to understand the personal feature of the Lord. The real purpose of life is to make contact with the Lord and be engaged in his service. That is the natural position of living entities. But those who are impersonalists are unable to render any loving service to the Lord, have been advised to meditate upon his impersonal feature. The Virata Rupa, or universal form. Some way or other, one must try to reestablish one's forgotten relation with the Lord if one at all desires to regain real happiness in life and to reclaim his natural unfettered condition. For the less intelligent beginners, meditation on the impersonal feature of the Virata Rupa, or universal form of the Lord, will gradually qualify one to rise to the personal contact. One is advised herewith to meditate on the Virata Rupa specified in the previous chapters in order to understand how the different planets seize mountains, rivers, birds, beasts, human beings, demigods, and all that we can conceive are but different parts and limbs of the Lord's Virata form. This sort of thinking is also a type of meditation on the absolute truth, and as soon as such meditation begins, one develops one's godly qualities, and the whole world appears to be happy and peaceful. Residence for all people, and the whole world appears to be a happy and peaceful residence for all the people of the world. Without such meditation on God, either personal or impersonal, all good qualities of the human being become covered with misconceptions regarding his constitutional position, and without such advanced knowledge, the whole world becomes a hell for the human being. Om Ajnanatinirandasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chakshurunmaditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Giri Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramanandamaranam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So this idea about meditating on the Virata Rupa, and later on in this Bhagavatam, I think in the second canto, they'll give descriptions of this universal form and the different things that we perceive in the universe and are on the planet are in relationship with the Supreme Lord. So, by this meditation, one becomes gradually able to reestablish one's relationship with the Supreme Lord. The materialists say that that type of meditation, coming to the conclusion that there's a God, there's a personal God that you can have a relationship with, that may have been, the conclusion of primitive persons who saw, the things of nature and were amazed by that. But now, we as scientists, we understand them more minutely. We know how plants photosynthesize sunlight into energy. And we have a very minute, we've gone down to the root of all these wonderful and amazing things that people attribute to God. And we analyze them, down to the atom. And we have quantum mechanics. And therefore we can understand things in a very mathematical way. And we don't have to attribute everything to God. So this is the atheistic mentality. But previously, people who lived in nature and depended upon God for their sustenance, depended upon nature, they realized that they weren't independent, and they realized their dependency on God. Previously, even in this country, 150 years ago, people were very religious. People believed in God. They talked about God, and they talked about their relationship with God. It's interesting. There was a documentary once on the letters that people wrote home, soldiers in the Civil War. It's about 150 years ago. Civil War soldiers. And invariably, all of these letters mentioned God and mentioned about their, faith in God. And so, and the people in those days, they lived on farms just like this, and they lived out in nature, and they depended on God for rain and the sustenance of their life. So they had faith in God. It's a natural conclusion. That's why, if you're not fixed up in the personal concept of the Lord, and you're attached to sense gratification, then see the universal form, and gradually you'll understand the personal feature of God. And that's the way things pretty much worked. Now, people are not, they don't feel dependent on God. They get their sustenance in some artificial kind of way, in a package, a packet of milk or a packet of cereal. It seems like there's some mood that you don't have to depend on God. You have to depend on money. Right? If you have money, you can survive. So, where does the money come from? Well, the government likes you to think that the money comes from them. So that way, people's natural dependence on the Supreme Lord has been interfered with by the modern society. People are much more attracted by living in cities than they are in living in the natural type of environment. Whereas Srila Prabhupada, he very much recommended for the devotees that if they weren't involved in intensive preaching, that living in nature on the farms is the best place for one to be. And that seems very logical because one develops a affinity for the Supreme Lord by seeing the Lord's different energies working. The seasons changing, the life that's and water producing the various vegetation. One develops an attraction to God. And with that attraction, one can take it further through the process of bhakti yoga, devotional service, to develop this personal relationship with the Supreme Lord, without which one will artificially try to become the enjoyer of this world, where here we see that it's very clearly described that the Supreme Lord is the actual seer of all the worlds, both material and transcendental. And he's the ultimate beneficiary. Bhoktaram yajitapasam sarvaloka maheshwara suridam sarvabhutanam gyatvam shanti vichati. Krishna says, Bhoktaram, I'm the enjoyer of this material and the spiritual worlds. They're meant for the benefit of Krishna. And the living entities are meant to serve Krishna. But, as Prabhupada mentions, they have a choice. They can choose to live in the spiritual world, the internal potency of the Supreme Lord, or they can choose to live in the material world, the external potency of the Lord, because the nature of the living entity is that they're marginal. They can be this side or they can be that side. But if they choose to try to imitate the Supreme Lord, and by trying to enjoy in the material world, they become under the strict control of the laws of material nature and experience birth, death, old age, and disease, even though their nature, as Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport, is spiritual. They're one with the Lord, and that the Lord is Satchidananda, eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. And the living entity in its liberated state also experiences eternality, complete knowledge, and complete bliss, ananda. So as soon as they come into the material world, they are attracted by the material nature, and they become encased in a material body. It's just like a cage. And they strive. They strive for liberation. They want freedom because their nature is to be free. They're spiritual. They have so much energy. Right? But it's all limited and all constricted in the material world. Therefore, we see so many types of efforts to go out beyond the material world. They want to go to the moon, they want to go to Mars, they want to go all these places, right? Because they feel constricted their real nature, the living entity's real nature is an eternal soul with so much knowledge and blissful nature, is constricted by this material world, which we can easily understand by the fact that the soul is eternal. Right? Eternal means doesn't die. But every conditioned soul that has a material body is forced to experience death due to the material body. So that, that threatening event of non-existence is always there for the conditioned soul. Therefore, they have this underlying frustration in whatever they do. They may be working hard, fruitively, developing so many things, but at the same time they know that at some point all will be for naught. It'll be over. So that, it's like the gnawing, it's like the, what do you call it, when the tap drips, and you're trying to sleep at night, tap, 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 tap. It's just agitating, right? Have you ever had that experience? You're suffering from a little insomnia, you're trying to sleep, but there's tuck, tuck, tuck. It just drives you. It's like the Chinese torture method or something. So that's there for every conditioned soul continuously. It's subtle, and they don't realize. If you ask them, one day they're going to, well, I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid. But if you pull out a knife and put it at their throat, they'll shout, don't kill me. Right? Everyone's afraid of death. And they only pretend to be, happy here. It's not real happiness. Their happiness is their expectation that they're going to become happy. They never really become happy. They work really hard for something, and they get it, and it's not quite right. They get the new car, but they find that, on the passenger side, the door makes a creak when it closes. Now, there's always something that's there in the material world. So, Krishna's advice is to don't try to adjust the things in this material world. They are what they are. It's dukkalaya, and it's a shashvata. It's a place of misery. And no matter how much you try to adjust it, it's still going to be a place of misery. No matter how much you try to, build up your empire here, still at some point, it's a shashvatam, you have to leave it, or it's going to fall apart. There's so many examples in history of, big, important persons or corporations that became finished. Just recently in India, we had an airline. It was called Jet Airways. For a long time, there was only Indian Airlines. That was the domestic airlines and in India. And the international airlines was Air India. So at some point, they liberalized and they opened it up, and so many airlines came forward. One of the first ones and most successful for a long time was Jet Airways. But now Jet Airways is completely folded. It's gone bankrupt. All the 20,000, 25,000 employees are out of a job. So that's shashvata. It's the temporary nature of this material world. And who knows why it folded? Probably the greed of the directors or whatever it is. But the Lord, He's advising us, don't, depend on anything in this material world. You just depend on me. Sarva dharma prityaja mami kamsanam manjasa. Aham tvam sarva bhavebhyo moksha shishnami masutra. You depend on me, and I will protect you. Yoga shemam vaham yam. I will provide what you're lacking, and I'll protect what you have. But this kind of information is not available, and people therefore don't know. They're not reminded, and they continuously make the mistake of trying to take shelter of something in this material world, whatever it is, and they become frustrated, and then they sink down to the lower modes of material nature and try to take shelter of some type of intoxication. And as Srila Prabhupada mentions, they just continuously suffer. But if someone's very fortunate, and they come in contact with a devotee of the Lord, that few moments of association, that lava mantra, can be enough for a person to revive or rekindle their lost relationship with the Supreme Lord, which they're so desperately looking for. Ye yata mam prapadyante tam tadaiva vijnanam. Everybody ultimately is looking for Krishna. But they don't know that. They're confused. And the devotee can put them on track. And maybe something very simple in the beginning by giving them a piece of prashadam or telling them about the holy name. But this can be enough to spark their interest to understand more. So that they can actually develop a personal relationship with the Supreme Lord and appreciate the things of the world in their real context. That flowers, they're beautiful, but they're not meant for my enjoyment. They're meant for the enjoyment of Krishna. That completes the cycle. The beautiful scented flower is offered to Krishna. And the living entity is not left out. Because after the flower is offered to Krishna, they can also enjoy the fragrance and the beauty of the flower. But first it's meant to be offered to Krishna. And that completes the cycle. Everything has its purpose in relationship to the Supreme Personality of God. And the devotee becomes the instrument of the Lord in offering these things to the Lord and trying to please the Lord with the various things. And so the whole world becomes a place where the devotee is constantly understanding how this can be engaged in the Lord's service. Whereas the materialists are constantly trying to figure out how they can engage everything in their own service. And they're becoming frustrated like anything. More and more frustration. And they go deeper and deeper into the modes of ignorance due to that frustration. So there's so much hate in the world because people are confused about who their real friend is. Right? Suridam Salvabhutanam. Krishna says, I'm your friend. And then once one understands our spiritual father is Krishna, then everything comes in place. The differences and the varieties, they become not so important. They kind of melt away, the differences. Whereas people that are thinking that they're the enjoyer, they have their group. And if their group is not, as long as their group is prominent, it's okay. And when they're not becoming prominent, they have a problem. Just like previously, there were, if you were white, if you were Anglo-Saxon and you were Protestant, you were in the prominent group in this country. But things have changed. The power of the white man has slipped away. And they're frustrated due to that. So we've seen many times that the frustration comes out in very violent ways. Somebody comes into a school and starts shooting kids. Why? Right? It's due to the frustration. And where does the frustration come from? The frustration comes from lifetimes of trying. And people think, well, how did he get messed up in this lifetime? Not this lifetime. So many lifetimes he's messed up. And it's culminated in this lifetime of extreme frustration by, killing innocent people. So the root of the problem, they talk about gun control. Okay, we can control all the guns. But then they'll figure out something else. What was that guy's name? Timothy... Timothy McVeigh, right down in Oklahoma. he was in the military, knew how to make a bomb from fertilizer. He rented a van, filled it up with, blew up a whole building, right? Killed so many kids in a daycare center and teachers. So they'll figure out something. You may try to control the guns. They'll come in with a knife. The underlying principle of the frustration of material life is not being addressed. And that is the importance of this Krishna consciousness movement, that it can actually change people's lives. As it mentions here, they can be happy. They can be happy in this life. Right? They can, live out their life, fulfill their material desires in a regulated way, and be happy, and be progressive in developing their relationship with the Supreme Personality of God. So this movement is the real hope for humanity to become happy in life and to be progressive in spiritual life. And therefore we have a great responsibility on us to maintain this movement. Srila Prabhupada said we can't expand, but at least maintain. To maintain what he's given us. He's given us so many different books and centers and the means of preaching like Prashadam and the Holy Name. And if we just try to maintain that, then certainly we'll, the history will go down, Srila Prabhupada's, in saying that it was this, the Hare Krishna movement that saved the world. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments? Yeah.
Is there a simple way, because I'm reading a lot, to differentiate between the internal and external energies of the Lord? Because I'm kind of confused about that.
Well, Krishna has various energies. Parasya Shakti Vivaraya Shrike, various energies. And so basically the internal energy is where the Lord resides. It's his abode, where he stays. And the external energy, he's also there, but it's a place where the living entities can come and try to lord it over in the material nature. Right? The external energy. It's more of a matter of the consciousness of the living entity. Right? As soon as the living entity thinks that, oh, Krishna is enjoying, I can also enjoy. That consciousness makes everything material. Otherwise, there's really nothing material. Everything's the energy of Krishna. But due to the consciousness of the living entities trying to be the enjoyer, it takes on its material, takes on its material notion. So, external and the internal energy is divided in various ways, and one part of the internal potency is Krishna's Landini Shakti, which is represented by Srimati Radharani and her expansions. And so Krishna and his internal energy are always interacting. And he doesn't really interact with the material energy, but he has expansions that do that. And he kind of takes a back seat with the living entity while the living entity is in this mode of trying to be happy in the material world as the Paramatma. In the internal potency, there is a relationship with the living entity and the Supreme Lord called Chinmay Ras, of the servant and the served. They're continuously interacting in that moment. And in various worlds. In Vaikuntha, there's one kind of interaction, and in Goloka, there's another kind of interaction. In Ayodhya, like Ramchandra interacts with his devotees in a different way. So there's all kinds of different permutations of this Chinmay Ras that depending upon the intensity of the relationship. In the material world, the living entities, the relationship is Atma and Paramatma. The Upanishads describe it as two parrots in the tree, two birds in the tree. And in the tree is the body, the living entities, yoni or material body. And the two birds, one is witnessing the activities of one of the birds, means the living entity, who's trying to enjoy the fruits of the tree. And he's kind of patiently waiting for the bird to stop doing that and turn to him. That's what the Upanishads describe it. So that Atma and Paramatma relationship here in the material world, the Lord is always there. It's not like the Lord gives up on anyone. He's always with them, whether they're in the body of a dog or a pig or a tree, he's there. And he's ready. And the fortunate thing about the human form of life is that there's sufficient intelligence in the human form of life for the living entity to understand about God and help himself develop the relationship, lost relationship that he has with God. So the material world is a big advantage also for the conditioned souls because it gives them an opportunity to redevelop that relationship. It's not at all a negative thing when you see it in relationship to bhakti yoga. But it's not, as Prabhupada said, it's not our real place. We're kind of like visitors here. We have a visa. We're foreigners. You know? I tell sometimes in class in India, you look at me, you think I'm a foreigner, right? But actually we're all foreigners. We don't belong here. We've just gotten a visa to come here for a little while. But our home is another place. It's another place. We're on our way home. We're trying to get home. We've overstayed our visa. Now it's time to go back home.
Yes, very good. Prabhu, very nice. Thank you so much. I was thinking as you were explaining that Krishna has made all these arrangements for us to be happy even while prosecuting the process of Krishna consciousness, that we fulfill our material desires in a regulated way and at the end go back to the. But even though we are engaged in this process, many times we are not happy. We are always hankering for something or lamenting over something or something is going wrong. So what is it that we are doing wrong that we are not happy even while we are in this process of bhakti yoga?
It's called the desire for sense gratification. The unhappiness it's a very simple thing. Frustration due to having some material desires. Yayato vishayam pumsa samgasteshu vijayate sangastam jayate kama kama krodho vijayate krodho bhavati samudbhava. So we have these material desires. They're not fulfilled because whatever desire you have, whatever you get, it's never enough in the material sense. So obviously there's frustration. And due to that frustration, it develops into anger, and from anger we become bewildered, our intelligence becomes bewildered, and we just suffer. Right? So even though we're on in the process of bhakti, if we become too carried away by our material desires, then we'll be frustrated. We'll definitely be frustrated. Therefore, the devotees always pray, even Lord Brahma prays, that he not be affected by the material desires. We can become what's called, we can become a little bit callous to them. Callous. So one has to be careful. And Srila Prabhupada gave us various methods. He said that you should always pray to Balaram to become free from material desires. And the inhabitants of Jambudvip, they pray to Lord Nishingadev to protect them from the material desires. when we chant the Nishinga prayers every day after every arati, that's there to protect us. Protect us from what? Protect us from our own material desires. Right? They cause us frustration and cause us anxiety, and therefore we cause other people frustration and we cause other people anxiety. So it's not in our hand, actually. Desires are coming, and we're dependent on Krishna to help us understand with intelligence that these things, even though I'm desiring these things, they're not going to make me happy. Therefore, I should focus on meditation. And the meditation, for those who are deeply entrenched in sense gratification, is this world around us and its relationship to Krishna. The beautiful flowers, the beautiful fruits, and for those who are more advanced, on the personal form of Krishna, and specifically his lotus feet, and gradually becoming advanced up to his smiling faces, which we talked about yesterday in the verse. But it all begins with the holy name. Right? Even in the Bible it says, glorify the name of the Lord with drums and cymbals. You know, the holy name. In the Catholic Church, I remember they had the Holy Name Society. They never did really tell you what the holy name was, but they used to talk about it, the holy name. So, yeah, the holy name, taking shelter of the holy name. Prabhupada said, if you feel that you're becoming overwhelmed by material desires, then chant very loudly, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think it was perfect and complete. And because it's completely perfect, elimination's coming from.
I was thinking what's so important to remember is, I don't know about anybody else, but it's so much my propensity to want to fix things. And it's alright, everything's going to be alright. You mentioned how that's actually not possible in this place. Because of that controlling propensity, it's so difficult for me to just depend on Krishna, let it go. That's maybe my test this lifetime. It's so difficult. Do you have any tips? I mean, you just said chant Krishna loudly.
Well, it depends. If we're sometimes you have to step up and do the right thing also. You can't be in devotional service too lackadaisical. If you're not able to keep to the standard, you can't always say, okay, just let it go. You should try to, come up to the standard of devotional service. And Krishna will help. And if you try to do that, Krishna will help. But sometimes I see that devotees think, well, I can't really follow, but, we'll see later. That kind of defeatist attitude sometimes is there, and it's not so good for our devotional service. I don't know if that would happen. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.